We began tonight in darkness. We remember those who were murdered at Bondi Beach, lives taken suddenly, violently, and without meaning. And moments like these break through the thin layer of normalcy that usually protects us. They remind us how fragile life is, how quickly an ordinary day can become unbearable, and how inadequate language feels when confronted with loss that should never have happened. Jewish tradition does not rush past such moments. It does not ask us to soften them or explain them away. It insists that we remember and allow grief to be real. Darkness in Judaism is not denied, it's named. And yet Judaism also refuses darkness to be the final word. Hanukkah began not in comfort, but in a moment where the world felt unsafe. It starts with the recognition that something precious has been threatened, damaged. And Judaism responds not with grand gestures, but with one small act, lighting a candle. And that candle does not erase grief. It does not undo violence. It does not pretend that everything is suddenly whole. What it does is quieter and more demanding. It asserts that even in a world where darkness is real, human beings are still capable of creating light. And much of Jewish spiritual thought holds that this process begins with the individual. Sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's the feeling that the problems of the world are simply too much for anything we do to matter. And the wisdom of the Hanukkah candle is that it does not ask us to solve everything at once. It asks us to do one thing. Create a point of clarity in an otherwise murky space. Even a small amount of light changes the environment. It restores the possibility of action. And this is not only a metaphor. Jewish spiritual teachers understood that one of the most significant obstacles to life is not evil, but excess. A story. A congregant once told me this story. She worked at a daycare when she was in college. And one of the kids, her mom was late picking her up. And she was left, standing there waiting for her mom to show up. And when her mom showed up, she said, "You do too much." And there's some real wisdom there. You do too much. When we're filled with ourselves, there's no room for anyone else. Light needs space to burn. And that's why humility plays such a central role in Jewish spiritual life. Humility is not self-negation, it's not humiliation, it's the act of making room. And when we stop insisting on being the center of everything, something opens up within us. And once that space exists, it must be filled intentionally. And the Jewish tradition has often emphasized reflection, hitbonenut, reflection. Not as an escape from the world, but as a preparation for engagement with it. When we slow down enough to remember that our actions reverberate beyond us, our priorities shift, and what once felt optional begins to feel necessary. And this inner shift matters because inspiration alone is not the goal. Judaism is deeply suspicious of spiritual experience that don't lead to action. It's not about that big moment on the mountaintop. It's not about the lightning bolt of sudden awareness that God is with you in Judaism. In Judaism, it's slower. It's slower. It's the idea that sustained work and endeavor is ultimately what creates a deep connection to the divine. Feeling uplifted is not enough. Feeling connected is not enough. The question Judaism always asks after that connection, or even without that connection, is what will you do now? And Hanukkah's answer is striking in its simplicity. You don't do something dramatic. You don't wait for a perfect plan. You don't attempt to fix the entire world. You do something small, concrete, and repeatable. You light a candle and then you light another. In traditional terms, this takes the form of mitzvot, obligatory acts. Not mitzvot in the sense of good deeds that we often use it, but commandments, obligatory acts. And these acts are not grand displays of holiness. We just did two. We lit some candles. Something that you could do when you have a dinner party at your apartment. Sometimes I just do it at night because it's nice to have candlelight. But when I say a blessing over it, it's something different. That simple action is transformed into something else. We perform these actions with care, speaking truthfully, lighting candles, acting ethically, even when no one's watching. But in a Reformed Jewish context, this idea expands rather than disappears. We don't experience obligation, commandment in the same way. But we still understand that Jewish life is sustained through action. A mitzvah is anything that aligns us with our highest values and helps repair what's broken. It can be ritual, it can be ethical, it can be profoundly ordinary. What matters is not the scale, but doing something. And this is where Hanukkah's practice of increasing light becomes so powerful. We do not light all 8 candles on the first night. We add one at a time. Jewish tradition values gradual improvement over sudden transformation. It trusts that repeated actions change both the person performing them and the world in which they occur. And this approach guards against despair when darkness feels overwhelming, as it does when lives are taken senselessly. It's tempting to conclude that nothing we do matters. But Hanukkah directly challenges that conclusion. It teaches that light does not have to defeat darkness to be meaningful. It only needs to exist. This week, I'm going to digress, which I tend to do. This week, I was studying a lot of text about Hanukkah. I had that luxury, which was really nice when I get to study. And over and over and over again, whether it's the Maharal, whether it's Martin Buber, whether it's the Nesivo Shalom, whether over and over again, the theme is out of darkness comes light. Out of darkness comes light. And they may each interpret it in a slightly different way, but that is the key message, that out of darkness comes light. And it's so vital to believe that as a Jew and just as a human being. So this practice of increasing light is also, it takes more meaning when we do it publicly. I'm really digressing now. When we do it publicly, that's part of the mitzvah. Traditionally, and we don't really do this much in America. If you're in Israel, you see this all over the place. You light the menorah and you put it outside your front door. I put it in next to the window. And that's public, publicizing the miracle as well, making it public. Not in the sense of advertising it, but making it public. But that's absolutely vital piece of this mitzvah, and all the more important today. And now I'm going to talk more about it. You can't retreat when someone attacks you. You can't retreat. We have to still be Jews in the public world, whether we're afraid or not. It's absolutely vital to still be out there and be publicly Jewish. Absolutely vital. Fear's natural, that's okay. But we can't stop doing that. The goal here is not to overpower darkness. It's always going to be there. but to refuse to surrender to it. The candles don't erase the night. They slowly let us see the room again. And this brings us back to where we began, with loss, with grief, with a world that sometimes feels frighteningly fragile. Lighting a candle after a tragedy is a return to responsibility. It says we remember. It says we refuse indifference. It says even now, especially now, we choose to act in ways that affirm life. One candle does not bring back the dead, but it honors them by insisting that their loss does not freeze us into silence or paralysis. It reminds us that Jewish life continues. Hanukkah does not promise that darkness will disappear. As I said, it's always going to be there. But it promises something even more demanding, that light can be created even when darkness remains. And it's our job. Light can be created even when darkness remains. And that light begins within us. It grows when we reflect on what truly matters. It becomes real when our intentions turn into action. So tonight we light candles, not because the world is whole, but because it is not. We light because doing nothing is not an option. We light because one candle is how change begins. Out of darkness we create light, and then we add to it Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.